Well, hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to our session today on insights through animal mindfulness. We're really excited to have all of you here. And as you're joining us today, I see some of you jumping on now. Oh, little things there. I see some of you jumping on now. So please do let us know that you're here. Let us know what your habitat is. Our beloved teacher, Reverend Sarah, has taught us to bring attention to the space in which we reside and, of course, all the wonderful beings that are there with us. So do let us know that you're here in the chat. We are streaming to several different platforms right now. That's what's really cool. And so we will be able to receive all of your comments, feedback, questions throughout our conversation here today. So yeah, we'll in just a moment get into our introductions and obviously right into our content. But I do want to encourage you at any time, please go ahead and share your questions. As mentioned, we will have a little more formal time at the end to get to the Q&A, but throughout the conversation, we'll certainly take those from you as well. So I do want to let you know right away, before we even get into too much here, that the three of us teachers are teaching together at a live event in New York in June. So if you enjoy today, we are together June 23rd through 28th at Omega Institute for Healing Studies for a 5-day experiential training on animal mindfulness. So we will provide to you the link and you can explore more details there, but we'd love to physically get together with all of you as well. Hey, Jennifer. Hi, Linda. Glad you're both here with us from Albuquerque and from Detroit. That's fun. So yeah, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Reverend Sarah now. Oh, you're muted.
I love that. From Albuquerque to Detroit, two very different habitats. All of you coming in from wherever you're coming from, we just encourage you to take a deep breath as you arrive. Amanda has welcomed us so beautifully from her heart and told you a little bit about why the three of us are together. We've been preparing for this wonderful retreat and we've been learning with each other and really enjoy the energy that gets together when the three of us get together. So we hope you will too. Today, we're going to be sharing experiential practices that you can use in your life to increase your bonds with animal companions or the wildlife living around you. So that's dogs, that's cats, there's squirrels, that's birds, pigeons, wolves. I don't know. Who are you thinking of? Who lives in your habitat when I say animals and wildlife living around you? We're rooting these experiences within a broad category of what we're calling animal mindfulness. So what that means, just in a little snippet, in a nutshell, a squirrel might say, it means to tune our awareness into the experience of the present moment and notice what our senses engage with. So that's all you need to do today, is tune into the present moment as we're offering different practices and notice what your senses engage with, what you hear, what you smell, what you feel in your body. And yes, even what thoughts go through your mind. Research suggests that mindfulness activities like these are not only useful for our own health. Well, the center of the universe, of course, runs right through our foreheads as humans, but it's not only for our own health, but also it can have impacts on the animals around us. For example, if you live with a skittish cat, who lives with a skittish cat? I do. Or you live with an energetic dog. Who lives with an energetic dog? That mindfulness activities may help them feel safe in the case of the skittish cat, or balance their energy in the case of the energetic dog. So you can see where we're going here. Mindfulness activities also can bring us into better alignment with our habitats, whether that's Albuquerque or Detroit or Boulder or all of the places that you're mentioning here in the chat, so that we can see the beauty of those habitats and the challenges of those habitats. And we can make the spaces that we live in healthier too. And finally, what's really interesting is that research also tells us that the areas of our brain that are active during practices like mindfulness and meditation and deep chanting and prayer or whatever the thing you do is, those parts of the brain that light up for us are parts of the brain that other animals also have. Not all of them, but some of them. And so that opens the door wide open that animals may also have spiritual experiences. We know they have interior lives, right? So might they have the same interest in mindfulness or meditation? I can't tell you for sure, but in my house, it seems to have an impact. So today we're going to offer 3 different practices. So stick around for 3 different ones that we're going to offer. They're going to be very different based on the spiritual practices that we each practice. We're in different modalities, so we're going to tell you a little bit about those different modalities and then jump into the practices. So let me introduce you to Judy first. Judy Ramsey is a shamanic teacher, professional animal communicator, an animal chaplain, and an interspecies counselor. Judy, can you share a little bit more about your approach to animal mindfulness before we get into the practices?
Sure. I'm bringing the shamanic aspect to our efforts here and at Omega. It's a practice which addresses the spiritual aspects of living and healing. The practice is strongly rooted in nature and in its relationship with the natural world. We see the spirit in everything, from rocks and trees to animals, the elements, and ourselves, as the same spirit, as working within a web that's in a balanced connection with each other and the planet. When I communicate with animals, for example, it's from within that connection, and that's what I do. Amanda is an instructor of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda, as well as an animal chaplain. In her work, she combines these diverse modalities to nurture the physical, emotional, and energetic well-being of animals and humans alike. Amanda, can you tell us more about how you do this?
Yes, absolutely. I will bring forward the Ayurvedic piece, as Judy said. And Ayurveda, for those that might not know, is the sister science to yoga and meditation. It is rooted in India, from India, the healing system and the wellness system, the mind-body wellness system. So after practicing this and sharing it with so many people, human beings over 20 years, I started to see the ways that the practices, the principles absolutely apply to the animals around us and the animals beyond us, whether they're in our home or out around this beautiful planet. And so I became very inspired to create that offering for the world, to be able to share those teachings so that it applies to their entire life all the way to the end and beyond with the animal chaplaincy that I've now studied. And so I can really help support that beautiful spiritual connection throughout our whole existence for the humans and the animals. So I would like to then introduce the wonderful Reverend Sarah Bowen, who is an animal chaplain educator, a columnist for Spirituality and Health magazine, and the author of Sacred Send-Offs. Oh my gosh, such a great book. Everyone needs to have that. An animal chaplain's advice for surviving animal loss, making life meaningful and healing the planet. That's the tagline of her fabulous book, Sacred Send-Offs. So Sarah, will you share with us a little bit more about what animal chaplains do and what they are?
Sure. Animal chaplains work with interspecies issues. So the herons and the squirrels that Linda just mentioned is actually an interesting kind of idea to think about an interspecies relationship. Humans and squirrels, humans and dogs, horses and humans, rabbits, and I could go on and on. Should I just name a lot of species? But we live in this world. We are 0.01% of life on the planet. Yes, folks, 0.01%. And so 99.99% of the planet is other than human. And there are issues that come up between us. There are great relationships and there are challenging relationships. So an animal chaplain helps with animals and the humans who care for them or love them or are in conflict with them, quite honestly. Our work includes teaching practices that help bond animals and humans or help an animal's well-being, right? Whether they're thriving or they're ill or they're at the end of life. It also helps assisting people in making decisions about the end of an animal's life. and being there to help animals transition to what I like to call whatever is next.
Hmm.
We also help people through the grief that occurs after transition. Anyone ever had grief over animal loss? No, I have.
Mhm.
And it can be tough. So we help with the transition, and we help with memorials and helping people through grief. And we also help people who work in animal care professions. So if you are a veterinarian or a shelter worker, an animal sanctuary staff, conservationist, an activist for animals in the earth, those jobs and volunteer positions come with a lot of stress. And so we help those folks too. So we get involved anywhere where humans and animals are interacting and try to lend our support. All right, so that's who we are, folks. That's who Judy, Amanda, and Sarah are. We could spend the next half hour telling you about all the animals that we live with and around, but we're going to jump into the practices. Maybe they will appear. You may hear a dog bark or see a cat walk across the screen. But let's jump into some practices, because I think that's what some of you are here to experience. And we'll start with Judy. Judy, why don't you offer us what you've got for us today?
I will. I do want to acknowledge, though, I love that definition of animal chaplain. I'm going to use that the
Mhm.
next time somebody asks me, what does an animal chaplain do? But I'd like to offer a way to set the tone of your day using a blessing that is a direct gift from one of your beloved animals, whether they're present or they have already passed. I know it's going to be hard, but choose one animal that you have loved. Choose one that's one of your favorites. And then think of 3 qualities that you have loved in them and write those down. Just note them in front of you on a piece of paper or maybe on, a screen page or whatever. And I give you just a few moments to write that down, just off the top of your head. You know what they are. Now, I'm going to give you a sentence beginning that I will give you and include each of those qualities in a sentence that begins with, "Today may I." And you're going to write those questions using the beginning of the sentence, "Today may I." For example, my cat Charlie recently passed. When he woke up, he was joyful. He purred as soon as he woke up every morning. He was also generous of spirit. He was also a courageous person. So my sentences might sound something like, "Today may I choose joy." Or, "Today may I be generous of spirit, forgiving myself and others." "Today may I be courageous, meeting everything with love, even if I don't know what's coming." And when you have the sentences, and feel free to share them in the chat, by the way, repeat them aloud several times. And as you're repeating them, notice what's happening in your body, in your mind, or in your spirit. Many people say that when they repeat their phrases, that they feel closely connected with their beloved animal, and they can actually feel their presence as they repeat the sentences. Can you imagine what kind of tone you could set for your day with this blessing? You can always add more qualities. You may even want to make a little ritual out of it for either beginning your day or ending your day to enrich it. Thank you for letting me share this with you. Just going to check the chat for any sentences that might have come up. "Today may I be loving and protective," from Amy. Oh, that must have been a beautiful animal relationship that you had. Hi, Angie. "Today may I love you unconditionally." Absolutely. And just feel the vibration, feel the energy shift when you're saying that blessing for yourself. This is a gift from the person, the animal person that you love. "Today may I accept you exactly as you are." Yes. And thank you for that. Today, may I find joy and humor in small things. Yes. Today, may I be accepting and forgiving. And today, may I be loyal to myself and others. I like this. Today, may I not bark at anyone and howl with joy. I love that. Thank you, Jennifer. I know one of mine with Charlie was, may I wake up purring every day. So we'll continue to look at these in the chat, and thank you for bringing that blessing to us too. Now, Amanda has a simple and effective way to connect with your animal's behavior and health.
Thank you, Judy. That was really beautiful. So special, so simple, right? And yet so deep and profound. I think that that is something that likely many of us enjoy and are drawn to in our relationships with animals. It's just not complicated, but yet couldn't be more beautiful. So what I would like to share with you is an Ayurvedic practice or an Ayurvedic framework for guiding you to better understand the mind-body connection with our animals or within the animal themselves. And essentially, this connection is in all beings. But of course, for the purpose of our conversation today, I want to focus it in on mostly companion animals, dogs and cats, and the pets in our lives. So I will want to show you a way to determine what the core imbalance is or the root issue to the behaviors that you're seeing. So in this case, I just want to bring our attention, because of it's a shorter class, to imbalance, because Ayurveda applies to obviously all aspects of life, the positive attributes and the imbalances or the challenges that one has and how that it expresses naturally through us. But for this conversation, just narrowing it into imbalance only. So that's where you're seeing some sort of challenging behavior or a physical ailment or condition that you're managing, trying to figure out. So for that sake, let's just take a moment to bring into our mind something that is going on with one of our animals. Now, there may be a few things, but just for the sake of this conversation, bringing in one area of challenge, something you've been working on, or you wish you had some better guidance on. So just taking a moment to get clear on what that is. And as I mentioned, Ayurveda is the wellness system rooted in India. Ayurveda actually means the science of life or the science of wisdom. And Ayurveda guides us into three categories. And it's basically everything almost falls into these three categories that express the elements and nature. These three categories are known as doshas. They are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Some of you are probably familiar with them, or if you've hung out with me for any time, you've definitely heard about them. So what I want to kind of bring our attention to is what an imbalance looks like, giving you some examples of each of those doshas, so that you can better understand, again, where to connect the dots and therefore what to do, what steps to take to bring balance. So first we have to understand what's at the base of it, right? So just kind of going through each one briefly. Vata, we'll simplify it here, is the air element primarily. And so when there's an imbalance, that means too much air. So when there's too much air, how do you feel? How does one feel? You feel ungrounded, right? You feel like a balloon, you're kind of floating away. So what does that look like in our animals? And again, we humans are animals too, but just a few examples: lightweight, anxious, nervous behaviors of all kinds, fearful, inconsistent, dry because of all that air and wind, and also whiny. You can even sense this kind of light, ungrounded energy in a whine or a cry, right? Just something kind of high pitched like that. So if you notice any of those qualities, Vata might be an imbalance. Then the next dosha is Pitta. Pitta is primarily the earth element. So what happens when there's the fire element. So what happens when there's too much fire? Well, inflamed, right? So there's inflammation. Inflammation is typically rooted in pitta and just intense. So how does that behavior look through our animals? It can be all kinds of various aggressive or intense behaviors, excessive barking, reactivity, rashes, and skin sensitivities. And then, as I mentioned, just inflamed anything, inflamed gut, inflamed joints, inflamed skin. That fieriness is present there. And then last but not least, the third dosha is kapha, primarily the earth element. And when there's too much earth, how do you feel? It's heavy, right? It's slow, it's inert. And so in our animals, how does that look? It could be overweight, lazy, grumpy, reclusive, sticky, even kind of yeasty. You know, we all know the ears or the kind of stinky feet that a weird part of our brain actually likes, but that could be at least some of us, but that could also be that yeastiness that will accumulate oftentimes with that kapha, sticky, think of the earth and like the muddiness that it holds, and very slow to change. Kaphas do not like things to very much routine beings. So now that you know vata, airiness, pitta, fieriness, kapha, earthiness, what do you see potentially as the root of the behavior? Was there any reflection? Just take a moment now. Was there any reflection that was familiar or seemed like the appropriate category for what's going on with your animal? So this exploration guides us in realizing the nature of the issue. And that is why Ayurveda is nature's science, right? It's finding the root, the source, the cause. But again, that cause being our innate makeup for each one of us, there's the beautiful qualities that come from that. And when there's a little too much, it can get imbalanced. So all I guide people to do really is to understand the imbalance. And then, of course, my work is giving tons of different tips, primarily through the senses. We all gather information through our senses. So primarily using those channels as the ways to bring balance. And it actually is very simple. So if you'd like to learn more about this, if you're interested, if this kind of intrigues you, then a good place to start is on samadog.com, my site. You can do the dosha quiz. It is called a dog dosha quiz, but do know it applies to cats as well. So if we are talking about excessive barking, you can just translate that in your own head to excessive vocalizing or meowing or whatever it might be. So you kind of make it work there. But then after you take that test, you then receive a series of emails that will give you both or all three dosha tips for bringing into your life, really simple ones right here available in your own house, you know, not hard to find or gather the ingredients to help you bring that balance. And you can start doing it today. So you can start there. And then if you really want to learn more, as we mentioned earlier in the session, we're doing our week-long event in Omega in June. And there I'll be teaching several sessions on Ayurveda and some other topics as well. So we'd love for you to join us. Yeah, there's the information down on the bottom of the screen there. So hopefully that helps you bring a little more insight to some of the challenges that you might be having. So now I'll pass it over to Sarah for her to share from her perspective and her modality.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, it does work for cats. I have figured out which doshas my cats that I live with are. And a really interesting way, I had never really understood much about Ayurveda until I met Amanda. And so my entrance was through animals as opposed to through people. So I was able to learn a lot about Ayurveda in relation to the cats that I live with, the skittish one and the boisterous one. So understanding a little more about their personality. So Amanda, thank you for giving us a kind of introduction to that and some things to bounce around in our brain and get curious about. And Judy, thank you for your beautiful practice. I was thinking about a cat that we lost, a little fiery orange cat named Max, who was very playful and very animated, and died far too young. And I wrote down, today may I remember to play, and today may I be forgiving of myself and others. And so I'm already taking away so much from the two of you. Thank you so much for these beautiful practices. I'm hoping to add a little more to our toolbox of ways of dealing with animal mindfulness. For those of you who have just joined us, we're offering 3 different types of approaches and perspectives and practices today, all around this idea of being in the present moment and noticing what's going on for us. And so what I'd like to offer you is something around the word soft. So think about when I say the word soft, what do you think of? Feel free to put words in the chat. What does soft feel like, or what does soft make you think of? I am a woman who has entirely too many stuffed animals in my home that I travel with. And so soft today is this little guy. This one's soft. Soft as my slippers. Amy adds soft is gentle. Yeah, Darlene says comforting. There's something about softness. We swaddle babies in softness. When it's cold outside, we wrap up in softness. Jennifer adds that softness makes her think of peace. And Barbara said peace as well. And Linda said, my fuzzy blanket and my belly. Yeah, our bellies and animals' bellies sometimes too, if they'll allow us to get on in there, if they like a good belly scratch or belly rub. Yeah, I like a good belly rub too. Mayan massage right there in the stomach, right? Annette thinks of alpaca. Yeah, we can think of so many animals who are soft as well. The reason I ask you about soft is for 2 reasons, actually. The first is that research tells us that when we are activated or we are stressed or we are finding ourselves, kind of floating outside of our body, upset about something that's just happened, that touching something soft can bring us back into our bodies. If it's a really extra stressful day, I've got 2 here. But touching soft will bring us back into our bodies, something just to rub or to hold, whether it's a small piece of fabric or it's a beanie baby that's in your car or is on your desk, especially if you work in animal care or any other kind of stressful type of profession or volunteering, that holding something soft, touching something soft, wearing something soft at work can be really helpful and keep you mindful. Angela adds it's comforting. Ave says it's nurturing. So think about if you can wear soft clothing. When I teach the animal chaplaincy training program, I actually teach in some bright green, actually it's more of a seafoam green, unicorn slippers. And I have no problem admitting that because they're soft and they're comforting and they help me be gentle and not loquacious. Well, I don't know, I'm very loquacious, as you can tell, but they help balance me. So not just being able to have my feet on the ground, but being able to touch something soft. So that's the first thing that I want to offer you. And we have some research on this that tells us that this works. We also have some interesting research about softness when it comes to the animals that we might live with. And I want to share this with you, and then we'll try it together, okay? So they did a study about mindfulness practices with animals, with dogs specifically, during the pandemic. So does anyone remember getting a little deeper relationship with your dog during the pandemic? Or a lot of people who said, hey, I'm home now. Maybe I have time for a dog. I'm home at the pandemic. Or for people who were essential workers and were out working, that they were able to come home and how it felt to come home after a hard day's work and be connected to a soft, gentle being or one of the energetic ones, but to have somebody waiting at home. Yeah. So they did a study and they had people do different mindfulness activities with their dogs. Some of them were just to sit and to think about their dog when their dog wasn't present. Some of the mindfulness activities were to play with the dog. So spend some time playing. But the one that seemed to be most effective was to have people mindfully think about the softness of their dog's fur. That is the one that was really helpful for people. Just thinking of the dog in abstract didn't really help so much as thinking about the softness of their dog's fur and imagining rubbing their hands through that softness. So now I know that some people, it's difficult. There's a good portion of the human population that has a hard time imagining things or going through guided meditation. So if that is the case for you, and you have something soft near you, just grab a blanket or grab a stuffy, or if your dog's near you and willing, or your cat, feel free to have a little bit of aid with this. But for those of you who might not be near an animal right now, let me take you into practice for just a couple minutes. So let's start by taking a deep breath together. And another one. You spiritual people seem to like threes, so add a third. And now I'd like to have you bring your attention. Your eyes may be closed, or they may have a soft focus on something. That's okay. Whatever feels safe and supportive for you. Bring your mind to something that may be bothering you a little bit today. Not something that's that like number 10 steam coming out of your ears type of thing. Just something that's more on the troubling side, because we don't have enough time to unpack the big stuff today. Let's start with something a little smaller. Is there something that happened in your house today? Or at work this week? Or a bill you're stressing about? Or a decision that needs to be made? Draw your attention to this and notice where you feel that in your body. And now imagine that there is a dog or a cat, or insert your preferred animal here, sitting right next to you, their body touching the right side of your right thigh. And as you breathe in and out, see if you can notice their body rising and falling along with yours. Might be at the same speed or might be at a slightly different speed. Animals breathe at different rates than we do. Now bring your attention to the softness right next to you. Don't touch it. Just bring your awareness to the softness next to you. Can you feel it? If you're wearing thick pants, maybe not. If you're in somewhere warm where you're in shorts, maybe you feel a little more. You might feel warmth. See if you can imagine the feel of the softness. And now look down at that little being and say, might I touch your softness? See if you can sense whether that would be something that would be pleasurable or okay for them. Consent is important. I have a cat who consents 60% of the time, and 40% of the time says, back away, lady. Let's presume that for our exercise today, that the animal next to us says yes. And move your right hand out to the side of your right thigh, just so it's touching the outside. See if you can feel the softness of that fur underneath your fingers. What does it feel like? Can you imagine touching soft? Take another deep breath there. Now notice how you feel in the rest of your body beyond your right hand. Just do a quick scan from your toes up to the crown of your head. See if you can bring the softness to anywhere that feels tense or knotty. If you have a broken heart right now, try to see if you can bring the softness to that broken heart. If you have an injury that you are healing from, see if you can bring it to that space. Or if you have a chronic condition, see if you can bring softness there. Now take one more deep breath and breathe your eyes open. Well, I know that was supposed to be a 2 to 3 minute meditation, but it seems Sarah got a little carried away with softness, didn't it? Wondering how it feels right now. If anybody feels soft, does anybody feel soft? If not, I hope you can bring this with you later in the day and give it a shot again, perhaps when you're not in front of your computer or your phone or your tablet. All right, folks, those are the 3 practices that we are offering you today. I hope that they have been helpful. And a reminder, we're going to get to some Q&A, and Amanda's going to help us with that. But just a quick reminder, if you find these kind of practices useful, and you'd like to try them for longer amounts of time and learn a lot more about Ayurveda and a lot more about shamanism, a lot more about animal spirituality, that June 23rd through 28th will be at the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies in upstate New York, well, not quite upstate, in the Hudson Valley of New York, for 5 days of doing different practices and learning different things. And right before I turn it over to Amanda, I'm just going to share from the chat that people noticed that their heart rate slowed considerably. Some people feel soft and warm, calm, relaxed. The idea of bringing softness to a place was an idea that was useful. Lars lets us know a sort of a contrary state. Dog's fur is coarse but soft. Yes. Excellent mindfulness, Lars. Yeah. Soft isn't always the same as a baby blanket. Yeah. Linda noticed the same as well. All right. So, Amanda, back to you.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. That was so beautiful. I really, really enjoyed it. You know, Benny, like here's Benny. He slithered up here. Benjamin, say hello to everyone. Say hello to all of our friends. He slithered up here as soon as he heard that we were going to do something around touching and softness. He's like, well, I got to get in on this. So yeah, he didn't wait a moment. That was really beautiful, Sarah. Such a important way to show how we can again, receive so much healing and give so much healing to our animals in very, very simple ways, oftentimes. And that's why we as practitioners love what we do, as you can probably all see that we're very passionate about what we do, because we see the benefit that it's brought to us and so many people around us and all the people that we've worked with and the animals, most importantly. And as we, I think, all can agree on, the animals need us now more than ever. So we're here to do it. And I know so many of you are doing that work. It may be one animal, it may be hundreds, thousands of animals. It doesn't matter. Every single one counts, and you count to them. So thank you for the work and the love and the care that you've shared. Being here today, being on this session shows right there how much you care. So we'd love to hear your questions if you have any. What I was curious about when we did the Ayurvedic conversation, just a little bit of that assessment, right, of imbalance. Did you notice anything? Let me go back here. Michelle said that what was on her mind was that her cat is constantly looking for attention. She's extremely soft, long-haired cat, lots of air, I think. So that's probably true, that neediness, kind of looking for comfort or safety. Perhaps too, if the animal's kind of cold, that can tend to be that kapha-ness, like mud. Think of when you touch mud, it is kind of chilly. So sometimes that coolness can be what they're looking to balance by being near your warm body. So yeah, but typically that kind of neediness energy is airiness. So yeah, so I'd love to hear from any of you if you made some correlation there with those imbalances, and just to reflect on that briefly, like the vata, the energy of ungroundedness, we want to bring it down to earth, right? And the pitta, heat, we want to cool it. And the kapha, heaviness, we want to lighten it, invigorate. So just knowing those simple principles of the Ayurvedic approach, at least, can be really helpful in assessing our animals and learning to interpret what they need even better. So I'm just looking down here to see if any of you had any examples of that. Were you able to make some correlations there? Were you able to share some time with a soft being or a soft thought? I love reading through your intentions here as well.
I do too. I was thinking maybe we should take all of the intentions together and they would make like one really beautiful kind of mindfulness prayer or blessing or something, because there
Yeah.
are so many insights in there from Judy that you pulled out from folks or inspired in folks. I think those are ones that I might need to pull out and put a list, right? On my mirror as a good reminder. Even though there are other folks' intentions, I don't mind co-opting really good ones.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I will answer this question here, but I'm curious if you all have felt a mindfulness practice deepening, your mindfulness practice deepening with your animals, involving them. I'm curious to hear your experience with that, or it's okay if it's no, because it's distracting, or I'm not able to focus or something like that. It's just interesting to hear kind of in these practices how you are able to involve your animals. So Angela says, how do you cool the heat? My dog barks a lot. Yes. Well, Angela, that is the ultimate question, right? So first, as I mentioned, the dosha quiz is a good place to start because you'll get some very specific tips. You'll get a few videos. I'm pretty sure we send out the cooking video even, so you'll get some tips of even foods. But that's the idea, is through the senses, you're choosing cooling foods, cooling smells, cooling aromas, cooling sounds. So one little simple tip for you right now is just start to, if you feel like heat is the issue, then start to play the sounds of water. Like just when you leave the house, like a little, stream, a trickling stream or ocean waves, just put on something on YouTube, and just let that music be in the environment of the animal, because it will be very cooling. If you want to take it a whole nother step, get a little fountain and have a little fountain in your living room. And that can very much help pitta energy, not to mention they can go and drink it if they're feeling a little extra thirsty. It's a double benefit. Patricia asks, can they fall into more than one group? Absolutely, we all, and I actually should have said that, so thank you for bringing that up. It's a very important aspect of Ayurveda, is that we all, every single being, every single aspect of life, so we're talking trees and plants as well, have all three doshas. Then each of us has a unique formulation, or say kind of our recipe. And then in that recipe, there can be that tendency to get out of balance because we already have a lot of heat or we already have a lot of earth. Typically, those are the easiest ones to get out of balance. How do you ground? My dog whines a lot. Angela, I believe, let the other ladies speak to this as well, because there's many practices, but absolutely what we're doing here today, Judy's practice, Sarah's practice, so helpful for helping that animal to just feel more settled, more at ease, more safe. The whining may be that, just like, I just don't know. I don't know. They can't talk and express that to you. So they use the methods that they have to be able to communicate. And so some soothing in some way. But what do you think, Judy or Sarah?
Well, I use communication a lot. That using a professional animal communicator can give you more precise responses with why your animals are behaving the way they are, what they're trying to tell you, but also just being with them, spending the time in nature, and without asking them to do anything, just to sit with their energy. And empathy goes two ways. So initially, you may pick up on some anxiety if your animal is ill or behaving differently or anxious. And if you can ground yourself, the animal can look to you for grounding as well. And in many cases, they're looking at us to be the leader. And we can provide that for them. We can provide that grounding.
Mm-hmm.
I wholeheartedly agree with Judy. And I know that sometimes just looking also at the quality of our presence around them when they're doing something that we're concerned about or confused about, or just being able to slow down, which is really, really hard. Now, I can't talk as much to a dog whining as I can to a cat meowing. So I will, I will defer to Judy and Amanda on the doggy questions. But for this same type of situation with cats and meowing, there are two things that I generally do, which is, one, the cat is trying to communicate with me something. And what is that? How can I become kind of aware of what that cat might need? And often what I'll do is I'll just also sit down and try to do one of these kind of just slow my breathing, sit down and see if they settle. And they just need me to bring my energy down, which, well, y'all have just heard me for a few minutes, so you can see that's probably the case when they're meowing, that I need to bring my energy down a little bit too. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing from the interspecies point, is trying to figure out what are they doing, and is there something that I can do to help them balance as well that might benefit me a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have a cat now who started almost doing Morse code on cardboard boxes. I'm not kidding. Deacon does this. One cat likes to sit in boxes, and the other cat won't go in the box because, Bub owns all the boxes, but Deacon will go up to it when he wants to communicate with me, and he'll tap on it 3 times and then pause and then tap 3 times and pause. And he will do this for 15 minutes until my husband, Irish Italian, so you can just imagine that. So says something to Deacon, and what I have to remember and remind us is he's trying to communicate something. There's something he wants. So if I can try to sense into that. So Judy, I might have to get you to help us out a little bit with the animal communication on what Deacon wants. I'm pretty sure it's food, but there's something a little deeper under that.
The sacred cat code.
And it just says, I bet. That's why I think breathing practices can be very helpful, because it's something that we're already doing, thankfully. And we can just bring a bit more attention to it. And the animals certainly pick up on that. Think of even just when you yawn and your animal will yawn, right? Or you take a deep sigh and your animal does the same. So, the animals around you are constantly in tune and looking for those signals. So it's the subtle things sometimes that make a big difference.
Yeah, in the when we have our science brains on, we call that emotional contagion, which sounds kind of not good, but it's a good thing. It shows that we're in touch with, we're in tune with each other. I I want to double down on the comment that just came up about neurodivergence. I'm someone who's neurodivergent, and so I think that that's really something to be aware of. And so being able to do that calming and that grounding, and knowing what helps you get into that state sometimes, before you enter your home, can also be helpful, as well as just trying to see, what do you notice that an animal does prior to them being calm? So be a little detective in your house. What do you notice that they do before being calm? Yeah. I think that dosha piece too. I think you've got a missing piece there as well, Amanda, because once I learned my cat's doshas and my own dosha, that helped out as well.
All works together. Here's a good question on the topic of doshas. Are doshas generally consistent and set at birth, or can they change over time? Great question, Diane. We actually have, to go into the Sanskrit a little here, let's use some fancy terms. Sanskrit is the ancient language of India, of course, and what Ayurveda, yoga, meditation is all carried through, like namaste or shavasana. Those words are Sanskrit. So to the Sanskrit of the prakruti is the word for your birth dosha. It is set at the time of birth, or some even say like conception, and you do come in with a certain recipe. So that's your prakruti. And then there's your vikruti, which is your current state. And that's where the imbalances come, because our recipe is perfectly blended. God makes no mistakes, right? So it's exactly as it should be. But then life happens, environment happens, seasons happen, stresses come, and that throws the balance of the nature off. And so that's where we start to observe the current place of imbalance, which is known as vikruti. So typically we are kind of working on the vikruti when there's an issue going on. And then once that issue has subsided, now we're just making sure that we nurture that prakriti, that birth dosha, so that it stays in balance. Because a fiery animal, as you know, or fiery being, you're always going to be fiery. That's your superpower, right? But it also can get a little too sharp and hot, and you burn some people. And so you need to learn how to just bring that back a little bit so that it creates a nice balance. And that's the big idea. Good question.
Amanda, there was a kind of similar question in here too, a little earlier about, can you be two? Can you be a combination?
Yes, you can. You have all three. Oh, yeah, I think I didn't really completely answer that. Is that we all have all three doshas, but most beings, they say around 60% or so, have two doshas that are predominant. And then there's a very small percentage, about 5-8%, that have all three very prominent. And so you might have noticed that with yourself as you were hearing the introduction, or in your animal, like, I really feel that there's an embodiment of all of that. And again, because we all do have them in different amounts, but some have pretty equal amounts, and therefore can express an imbalance in all three of the doshas rather easily. Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to the anxiety or whining or anxious behaviors that someone mentioned before. Depending on the degree of anxiety and vigilance, and maybe even aggression in an animal, and this particularly happens with rescues, where we don't know what their previous history was. We're expecting this cuddly animal that's going to be fun to have. And we end up with someone who really doesn't like to be touched at all, or is very vigilant about loud sounds and maybe even aggressive towards other dogs. one of the things that happens shamanically is loss of power and loss of soul. Whenever any of us are in a trauma, we lose a part of that spirit that if we had kept it, we probably would not have survived the ordeal. So parts of our spirit, parts of our soul leave. And this is from a shamanic point of view of why we end up sick or ill or without any personal power. Um, on my website, judyramsey.net, is an article on shamanic healing for animals that explains what happens when there is soul loss in an animal. The practitioner generally does a soul retrieval and restores that part of the animal's spirit that they may have set aside during severe trauma. And I can't tell you how effective it is with PTSD, especially with rescue animals. If your animal is very vigilant and that doesn't go away in a normal amount of time in adjusting to a new home, um, you may want to try shamanic healing for your animal to be able to restore it to fullness and wholeness. And there is a lot of, you can really tell the difference. When that piece is restored to the animal, the personality generally takes a 180 turn.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to address the extremes because I know that there are some of my clients out there that have done this and it's worked really great. So thank you for being present with us today.
Love that, Judy. I love
Mhm.
this. I love what happens when people get together. When we get together, when all of you get together to try to really think about how can we make these relationships the best that we can, and how can we help with the well-being of those that we love so much. Judy, that's fascinating. Thank you for that.
Mhm. All right, everyone. Well, I think we've addressed most of your questions, but we'll certainly keep an eye on the chat. And if you're watching the recording as well, hello. Sorry not to welcome you an hour
Oh,
ago.
future people.
Our future friends, but do put your comments into the chat as well, and we will keep a good eye on there. And oh, there's one more, kind of long. Should we grab it real quick? Let's look. For Judy, is the practice we try to and attempt to project natural kindness, recognizing why we love our animals, and then taking on those attributes in our relationship to the world?
Absolutely. These are the things they've taught us
Mm.
during their time with us. And if we're mindful of their presence and we can be grateful for their characteristics that we love so much, those are the things that they are instilling in us and also showing us how to project that into the world.
Love it. Beautiful. Well, thank you all so very much for being on with us today. We are very grateful. We do hope to stay connected. I know we will stay connected, but we'd love to see you in New York at Omega. It's a beautiful location. If you've never been, or if you're curious, just go online and look at some pictures, because it's an amazing retreat setting where all the popular teachers and authors and seekers, they all kind of commune there, and it's a very special place. So we'd love to see you there. Let us know if you have any questions. I want to thank our producer who's been on the back end, Renee, who happens to be my husband. So he's forced to do this job, but he does it with love and grace and ease. And so thank you, Renee, for being here. It sure does make it a lot easier for me also. And Judy and Sarah, thank you so much, both of you, for being my teachers, for being the world's teachers, and for being such amazing advocates to the animals, for the animals.
Back at you both. And to anyone here who's interested in kind of starting to do the work that some of us have mentioned here as an animal chaplain as well, I think we've got one more link we can post for you too, animalchaplaincytraining.org, if you're interested in doing some kind of deep study. So we've got the 5-day retreat and also a kind of a 9-month deep study program as well. So hope to run into all of you in one of these ways or online. And I think that Judy has a beautiful blessing to close us out, and any of her final words.
I do. Thanks, Sarah. Let's just all take a deep breath. It's been a wonderful time with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. May we be mindful of the animals in our lives and the gifts they give us every day. May we be present with them and learn from them how to be good spirits. May the gratitude and love that we feel for our animals guide our lives when we're not with them. We thank the beloved ones for the blessings we know we will receive. May it be so.
Oh. Blessings to all of you and all the animals around you and all the animals around this beautiful planet. May all live and be in peace. And again, thank you all very much for today. We'll see you next time.